All right, welcome to Grape to Glass, everybody. This is super exciting because we are tasting two Grateful Club exclusive wines tonight from Mari's Picks. These are featured for Q2. These haven't been released before, so we're going to have a lot of fun learning about these wines, and I'll also give you some tips and tricks of why I selected these for Q2 when we talk about our pairings and sort of seasonality of both of these wines. So kicking it off with the Rainbow Brut. This is our Celebration Brut, which is the rainbow and it's non-glittered. So this is a great price, and it is our Celebration Brut, which if you've had our Celebration Brut before, I'm going to tell you a lot about that wine tonight. This is really one of our top reserve sparkling wines, and it goes to a great cause supporting the LGBTQ community. So we're really excited to feature this one in this month's, in this quarter's Mari's Picks. So before we get started, I know we have a couple new people who just joined One Hope, and I want to do a shout out and welcome them, and also break down a little bit about Mari's Picks and the Grateful Club, since a lot of that information can get slightly confusing. So for all Grateful Club members, which Cause entrepreneurs are also Grateful Club members, we offer a variety of great perks. One is 50%, it's about 50% off of shipping. So you get some savings on your shipping every time you order a case. And then once you have ordered $500 worth in 1 year, you get to go back and donate to the cause of your choice. And so that is an awesome pick of being a Grateful Club member. So like I said, there's a lot of great discounts, a lot of great features in the Grateful Club itself. Now, if you are happy in the Grateful Club and you want to get some wines more frequently, because you need to, as a Grateful Club member, you need to be going online, placing your orders. Maybe you're hosting wine tasting events. Maybe you're contacting your cause entrepreneur and ordering more wines, or just checking in regularly. Or maybe you want to order more wines and have them come to you automatically. So that would be where you opt in to Mari's Picks. Anyone can opt in to Mari's Picks, and once you do that, you will get a quarterly shipment of wines that are 6 wines selected by me and my team that we feel like are a really special package, that are seasonal, they're inspired, and oftentimes exclusive to our winery in Napa Valley. So that's kind of how the breakdown works in between Grateful Club and Mari's Picks and what that all means. Now, I also wanted to let you guys know that with these 2 special wines that are part of the Grateful Club, if you have someone who's a Grateful Club member, they tasted these wines at a wine tasting event, and they want to purchase them, they can. They don't have to be Mari's Picks members to purchase these wines that are exclusive for the Grateful Club. But I love surprise packages with 6 curated wines from a winemaker. So I always encourage people to try it. You're going to love it. They make great gifts if you don't think that you can enjoy all of that, or you don't want to put some away in the cellar. But this is a great opportunity and at a great price. So anyway, now that we've cleared that up, I want to show you guys these wines and taste them together. So the Celebration Brut is, and this is what we call our Rainbow Brut because of the label and because of the cause partner, is made in a traditional method. So what makes it this sort of reserve-like tier of sparkling wine? Well, this is California sparkling wine made with a blend of California Chardonnay grapes, and it is made in the what we call traditional method, or méthode champenoise. You don't have to say that 20 times fast, but méthode champenoise is what is used in France and also in Spain to make cava. In France, they make champagne in this method, where the first fermentation occurs in a cold fermentation tank. The second fermentation actually occurs in the bottle. So where do we get these great bubbles? We get them from inside the bottle, a second fermentation. So if you guys were watching on Q&A Tuesday this morning on Facebook, you know that alcohol is created from the conversion of sugar, and so yeast actually produce alcohol from sugar. One of those byproducts is bubbles. That's really all you need to know. It's CO2, and that's what creates these amazing bubbles in wine. So méthode champenoise is, you guessed it, very labor intensive to actually have the secondary fermentation going on in the bottle, in each and every bottle. And it also really releases these wines which are creamy. The bubbles tend to be smaller than other methods used, like the Charmat method to make Prosecco. So the bubbles are kind of finer in your mouth. There's a creaminess, and there's an extra complexity because that yeast that did the job of converting that sugar to alcohol is actually aged in the bottle until right before it is finally disgorged. So that's a whole nother little bout of technicalities, but it's all in our training center, how we make sparkling wine. So I really encourage you to check that out. And the traditional method is very unique and really creates these beautiful wines. Another thing to know about our Celebration Brut is it is the driest, meaning it has the least amount of sugar of all of our sparkling wines in our portfolio. So if you have somebody who is looking for a drier sparkling wine, this is definitely one to steer them towards. Okay, this is sort of traditional levels of sugar. Most sparkling wines, I was saying this morning, about 99.99% of sparkling wines have some what we call disgorging liqueur that's added right before this cork and capsule goes on to balance the wine, to give it richness and viscosity and create the perception of more fruit in the wine. So that is a really traditional process where just before this cork and cage go on, after that second fermentation and the CO2 is all produced, there's a little tiny piece of that yeast that did the job that comes out of the bottle, and a little disgorging liqueur goes in, and then it's sealed up for enjoyment. So anyway, I know that's a lot of information to cover, but I like to give you guys all the facts and all the tools to talk about this wine. And like I said, go to the training center. In there on the introduction to wine, there is a lot more information about how sparkling wines are made. And we'll definitely revisit sometime soon. So that's a little bit of the nuts and bolts behind this Celebration Brut. And I see a question in the chat box. No. Hi, Katie. I didn't see you pop on. Good to see you in the chat box. So I have poured, we've got some new joiners. I see you guys here. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. I am recording this, so it will be available, and go ahead and pop any of your questions in the chat box. So I always like to present wines in different glass shapes, you guys know, and they're not usually the ones that are recommended by the officials of the wine industry, but they are official because I'm giving you some tips on how real people drink wine, okay? We don't all have 20 champagne at our house. I don't. I actually did buy some for a New Year's Eve party just for fun because they were on sale and they were kind of pretty and cool. But I don't have 20. I have like 6 or 8, and they don't get used very often because most of the time I am drinking my sparkling wine out of whatever wine glass I want. So today I chose this stemless because it's beginning to be outdoor weather here in California, which means I'm always going outside, heading out to the deck, chasing the kids, looking at the barbecue. And I don't like having my teetering wine glass on a tall stem to worry about. So usually this time of year, I am using this. stemless ware. And one reason why I'm going to recommend it for sparkling wines, first of all, I know I've said this maybe before, but some of you probably haven't heard it. Anytime you go to a winemaker's house, they're always serving sparkling wine in whatever glass you're going to be enjoying for the evening. So it's not like, oh, we'll pour you your special sparkling glass and then we'll come pour you another wine. That happens in restaurants, which is amazing. Doesn't happen in the average household, right? Is anybody with me here? So I just really want to make sure you guys know that when you're pouring sparkling wines, any glass is suitable. So you're good. And if you want to serve it in a flute too, awesome. I love doing that on Valentine's Day, New Year's, like I said, special occasions. I'll definitely get out the flutes. But why I'm loving this for sparkling is that one of the tips that I like to give about serving sparkling wine is that you should wait about 10 to 15 minutes once you pull it out of the refrigerator to get to the really perfect serving temperature, which I like it around 50 to 55 degrees. And so in order to do that, you've got to think about that ahead of time, pull it out, you're watching your clock, you're doing this. That all sounds good, but when you're actually hosting an event or getting an entire Easter meal ready or any of the number of thousands of things that you really do in real life, that can be hard. But when you've got stemless ware, it actually just warms up to your hand, to your touch. So you're kind of doing that while you're serving it. So no objections here to stemless ware. And so just wanted to point that out. All right, I'm trying to keep an eye on you guys in the chat box too. All right, so let's taste this together. Now, the fun thing about sparkling wines is we don't actually have to swirl them to get the aromas because the CO2 and sparkles, bubbles is doing that for us. So that is just bringing the aromas right up to the top so you can just smell. This wine, maybe it's power of suggestion, but I don't think so. Really smells like all of these illustrations that we have here, these pictures. It's like the pear, golden apple. Those are classic characteristics from Chardonnay, a classic apple and pear. And I always remember that because Chardonnay is a classic American varietal. It's one that we love, right? People love Chardonnay here in the United States and other places around the world. And I think of classic American pear pies that we love. We love apple pie also. There's certain flavors that kind of go together culturally, and there's reasons why cultures like those flavors. And so I always kind of remember that with the Chardonnay. If I'm not smelling it, then I just remember that because it's something that we love. So golden apples, pears, a little bit of brioche, you know, that fresh baked bread, that actually comes from that secondary fermentation that occurs in the bottle. And it's a subtle nuance that adds complexity, richness, and makes this a little bit more reserve-like. It's more top-notch. And then, of course, a little bit of citrus, too. So I love smelling this wine, and then, of course, we get to sip. Delish. So we've got here, this is on the drier side. I mentioned earlier, this is our driest of sparkling wines, is our Celebration Brut. So it is quite dry. And in terms of the acidity, I find it pretty crisp. And that's one reason why I love this wine. I love the winemakers that we work with behind this wine. In fact, is anybody familiar with J Winery? They're a famous sparkling winery up in Sonoma County. And they make that big, beautiful bottle that has the J on it. You've probably seen it, maybe in a nice restaurant, you've even seen it on the glass. Anyway, we work with their former winemaker who made all their amazing sparkling wines on these wines. And she's been doing this for like over 30 years. So I think she knows what she's doing. And it's a lot of fun. We get to actually blend our wine for One Hope with them. And so that means that I go up and do tastings with them. We do the disgorging trial so that we can determine like the appropriate dosage liqueur to put in. So we taste different amounts and we get to the right amount of sweetness. So, so it all depends on the vintage. It all depends on the fruit expression. You can't always just use a blanket recipe, right? In winemaking, it depends on the vintage. It depends on the fruit, and it depends, of course, on our customers. And so this is one that we really love for freshness, acidity, and for a little bit of tradition too, that complexity and tradition of a true California sparkling wine made in a champagne style. Awesome. And we've got this on the lighter body side. Sometimes that's to do with the acidity in the wine. So when there's a little more acidity, sometimes you get a little less body, but it's really crisp, really rich at the same time. So pairing suggestions for this wine, because of that complexity and richness, I think you can get a little bit more complex with your pairings if you want. And I always encourage you to take tasting notes and use those so you compare like flavors. So you can pair golden apple, pear, you could do pear pie, apple pie, or brioche, or something citrus, a lemon bar. Those are kind of all sweet, but you can take that lemon citrus flavor and apply it to a pasta dish or a salad dressing. So many creative ways to incorporate these pairings, but this is perfect with a fruit and cheese platter. Anything salty, so even like French fries or like a truffle fry is like one of my favorites with sparkling wine, but even a salty nut mix, or we've got like little pretzel bites on here, so just little things to nosh on at a tasting event that can be really inexpensive but also delicious. When you want to get a little bit more into like a main course, that seafood Alfredo would be really good. That's something that we really do recommend, is having some fish, some seafood, maybe a little bit of lemon there from the tasting notes, and then a champagne cake. I think we have a recipe somewhere for the champagne cake, but you can actually make cake with champagne, which is amazing. So, it's really light and fluffy. And in fact, there are a lot of great ways to cook with sparkling wine, which I know sometimes seems like it would be a crime to do, but if you just add a little bit, I always use sparkling wine in my tempura batter if I'm tempuraing vegetables or tempuraing fish for like fish tacos. So if anything that kind of calls for a little bit of beer, instead I use sparkling wine. I also use sparkling wine in my risotto. So that's like an Italian method that I learned, and it adds a little bit of air and it makes the risotto more fluffy. So I add sparkling wine instead of white wine when it calls for white wine. So you can get creative and cook with this too. Truffle ravioli, that sounds amazing. Yeah, I think truffle is great with this too, because you've got earthy and then a lot of fruit flavors, and so opposing flavors are great as well. So you can do like, or you can do opposing. It just kind of depends on what you're looking for, and the best way is to experiment. All right, so I think many of you have not yet tried our Napa Valley Moscato, but if you're on here and you have tried it, why don't you type something that you like about it in the chat box so that we can learn from you too. This is our exclusive Napa Valley Moscato. It is part of our iconic collection, which is exclusive to our Napa Valley Estate Winery opening at the end of 2019. So the end of this year, first part of 2020 is when, so end of 2019, did I say that right? And first part of 2020 is when our estate winery is going to be opening in the heart of Rutherford in Napa Valley. And this is a special wine that we created for that experience, really to enhance the tasting experience. So many times in Napa Valley, you're tasting a lot of really big, rich Cabernets, which Napa Valley is known for, and we have several in our iconic collection. And this is really meant to punctuate the end of that tasting. And this is really kind of a key part of the overall experience when you come to our Napa Valley estate, where you get to enjoy this nectar. I call it the Napa nectar. And this is actually a really cool story where we were in the vineyards together. I was with one of Rob Mondavi's winemakers, Tony Coltrane, and we started talking about this and thinking about the winery opening. And I really wanted an aromatic white that was made in this style. And he was like, oh, you know, we used to make this Moscato. And, you know, it was so good. People loved it. And it was kind of their classic signature wine at Robert Mondavi Winery. And I said, well, we've got to get a hold of some grapes. So I went out stomping around Napa looking for grapes. I found a few vineyards. Some of them just did not have the intensity and quality and flavor that we were looking to achieve with this wine. But then we actually did find a little tiny, it was about 4 rows in Rob Mondavi's family vineyard, which is way up kind of in the mountains of Napa Valley. And he said, yeah, I've got a couple rows of this Muscat. You know, if you want it, we can do that. So we did, and we created this wine, which is really not a dessert wine. It's not like an aperitif. It's a refreshment. It's kind of a palate cleanser. It's just a wine that's meant to be enjoyed. And we love it, like I said, as part of like punctuating the end of a tasting experience. But it can also be enjoyed just about any time of the day, which is why I wanted to feature it this quarter. I think it's perfect for the holidays coming up. We've got Mother's Day. We've got a lot of brunches happening. There's people celebrating Easter. And these are like afternoons, right? Not late evenings. A lot of this is afternoons, enjoying the new spring weather. And it all goes together, right? The wine, the experience, all those memories. And so this is a perfect wine served very chilled. I chilled this way down, and that's why I'm also enjoying it in this stemless glass. You know, just a little bit, like a serving would be maybe like a half of glass. And it really is best and meant to be enjoyed super cold. So you can enjoy it that way. I like to have it at the end of the tasting, like I mentioned. So if you are pouring Mari's picks for your host, and offering that for them where they can actually select the 6 wines from our quarterly shipment, then I really recommend that you serve this one last. All right, let's sip together. So a couple other fun facts about this is that the Muscat grape can actually be found in 3 of our wines in our portfolio. The Core Collection .label Muscat Canelli. The Core Collection .label is sold through wholesale, but those wines are available online. And we also have our North Coast Muscat, which is a beautiful wine. And then this Napa Valley Moscato. So 3 different wines, really from different regions with different expressions and more intensity. And the sweetness comes from the grapes by using what we call a cold fermentation, where we arrest the fermentation prior to conversion to alcohol. So the grapes are the wine is decreasing in sugar as the fermentation takes that to alcohol, the sugar to alcohol. And then at some point we stop that fermentation and we keep that grape sweetness, that natural grape sweetness, part of that flavor in the wine. And that's what makes this so seamless and so beautiful and so expressive. And Muscat is one of the ancient grapes used to make some of the first wines recorded in history. I think that is so cool, right? A lot of us haven't even heard of it because it's often used as a blending grape, but it is really one of the most ancient grapes. It's thought to be one of the very first grapes used to make wine. So cheers to that, and let's sip together. So you can swirl this wine, and I get a lot of apricot and peach. A little bit of the peach blossom right now, but a lot of apricot and fresh peach. And this wine is definitely sweet. I think I might have a little typo in this dry to sweet diagram here, because this wine is definitely sweet, but it's not sugary sweet. It's balanced sweet, right? You don't go, ooh, it's so cloying. It's really balanced. That's because the acidity is balanced and it has kind of that light bodied expression. But it is really well balanced, where it just seems like a nectar. It's not even, doesn't even seem like you're drinking wine, right? It's so delish. So I've got a couple questions in the chat box. Is it like a dessert wine? And what are your thoughts on ice wine martinis? Ooh. Well, I think you could definitely serve this over ice and make some kind of special cocktail. That's what you're thinking. That would be a lot of fun. Um, and you can serve this as a dessert wine. You can definitely serve it with desserts, but I don't really classify it as a dessert wine because I think it has a lot more occasions, not just dessert. So we'll get into the pairings here in a second, but I like to think of it being able to navigate more than just the dessert meal. So let's talk a little bit about what some of those pairing suggestions are. So hard cheeses would be great. If you think about just having like a really great charcuterie platter or something, and all these different cheeses and maybe some honey and some fruit mixed on it, and then you're sipping this wine, that could be kind of like a picnic or an afternoon. Of course, a tasting event, refreshments for, a graduation or some kind of gathering for the summer, some kind of celebration. I would definitely recommend that. This is kind of fun, but like the little spicy lumpia, the little spicy rolls. I love those, and this is just a good example of that spicy food would pair really well with this wine. So you can enjoy this at dinner. You could take this wine with you to a Vietnamese restaurant, any kind of like ethnic and spicy foods, Thai food, even some Chinese food, and really enjoy it. Or if you're serving any of this type of food at an event, certainly this would be a great pairing. When we're thinking about Easter or Mother's Day and all these spring festivities that we have coming up, I love the idea of the little petite ham quiches. And then for any desserts, we do have a One Hope apricot spread. And so we were thinking about that. You could also do like any kind of little apricot jam or jelly on a ham sandwich and get creative with this wine, but you can really enjoy this outside of dessert is the point. Like it can be enjoyed or on its own. It's also thought and heard from Rob Mondavi Jr., who we work with, that his grandfather, Robert Mondavi, loved this wine just a little bit ice cold at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, just as a refreshment, because it doesn't have super high alcohol and it's really, really, really flavorful and it's refreshing, right? So it's really versatile. It's really special in this bottle, and it is now available for our Grateful Club members. So anyway, I'm really glad that you guys were able to taste that with me. tonight. And thank you all for being here. I know there were some new people on, and I am going to leave the chat box here in case you have any other questions about these two exclusive wines. I've got here the Moscato and Celebration Brut. Oops, it didn't want to go with me. Celebration Brut. So either of those wines, if you have any questions, let me know, but they're kind of the bookends of our Q2 Mari's Pick shipments. So if you're thinking about tasting these wines, I love to start with the Sparkling Brut and finish with the Napa Valley Moscato. All right, everybody, this will be available. I hope you can have a wonderful rest of the month, and I will see you next month for tasting more of Mari's Picks. Thanks for joining me, everybody, and I'll see you on Tuesday for Q&A Tuesdays live on Facebook at 10:30 a.m. Cheers, everybody.